Atlantis. Say the name and you see it, that unmistakable silhouette on the Dubai coastline. But icons don't stay iconic by accident. They demand constant reinvention, and someone who understands that luxury hospitality is no longer about selling rooms, it really is about selling emotion, it's about selling feeling. Hanan Eissa is the Vice President of Marketing for Atlantis, the Palm. She helped launch Atlantis The Royal, one of the most audacious openings in recent hospitality history, and brings a background in consumer brands and creative agencies to a role that's as much about cultural currency as it is about commercial strategy. Today we're talking about how you refresh an icon without losing its mystique, what emotional intelligence really means in hospitality, and how you sustain creative energy when you're constantly innovating whilst being firmly in the public eye. Hanan, welcome to What the Lux.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I'm very excited to talk to you, especially about Atlantis, the opening of the aquarium, and just generally, you know, the presence that you have in this region, and this region really is having its moment. So I'm really looking forward to getting into it.
Me too.
But first, can you just walk us through your personal journey? I think it's good to have a bit of a sense of what led you here.
Yeah, sure. I actually, funny enough, I was meant to be a doctor, and I sort of studied my first, year of university was to end up in med school, and I realized that I actually despised it. So I had a bit of a moment in my life where I had to sort of figure out what I wanted to do, and I actually fell into marketing accidentally. I was trying to figure out, I want to be a little bit creative. I'm good with words. What is this discipline that is marketing? This was in sort of the late 90s. It wasn't as prevalent and as sexy as it is probably now. And
well, it wasn't. Things weren't marketing led, were they?
Exactly.
And it was a sort of subservient role to sales.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's exactly what it was. It was, the discipline of marketing was still finding its feet in the sense that it was sort of grounding itself in the world of brand and, exploring different tracts, I would say. And sales was definitely the lead. And so I sort of fell into marketing. And after I finished university, I started working in agencies. So I did qualitative research for a long time. I did a lot of work for P&G and Coca-Cola and Unilever in the region, actually. And I really loved it. I loved talking to people. I love understanding what was behind, the psychology of marketing, which was really, really interesting to me. And then I moved into, I worked for McCann. McCann opened an office in Egypt, actually. And I worked for McCann for a few years in strategic planning. Again, very much a function of understanding how to activate a brand strategically. And then I moved back to Australia, and
hang on. So you were in Australia, then you moved to Egypt.
I moved to Egypt.
And then back to Australia.
Yeah, back to Australia. I worked for Nielsen for a few years, commercial insights, helping brands really understand their commercial positioning. Again, a very different proposition. And then I was poached by Schweppes Australia to go and work for them. And I worked for the Schweppes brand. I was the brand manager on Schweppes in Australia for 7 years. And so it was incredible. And, at the time, Schweppes was really about I would say an aging product. It wasn't cool. It wasn't sexy. It wasn't vibrant anymore. It was for the old people who wanted to mix drinks. And so how do you reinvigorate the brand? And that was really a 7-year journey for me.
Did Pepsi own it at that point?
Yes.
It's funny because I always remember reading, I was speaking to the founder of Fever Tree.
Yes.
And he said that he was, I can't remember if he was like at McKinsey or he was reading a report from McKinsey, and they came in to optimize Schweppes for the sale to Pepsi, and they optimized the lemon out of it. And I remember he said that he had the insight to create the 80% in the glass that's actually matches the 20% of spirit that you put in there.
Yeah.
Because he was like, I can't believe actually that so much of your glass is full of something where in fact the flavors are entirely synthetic.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
In Australia, it was owned. So we had a joint venture with Pepsi.
Yeah.
Unlike the rest of the world, Schweppes is actually owned by Coca-Cola, with the exception of 5 markets. I think France is one of them, and Spain, where they're owned by Orangina. In Australia, they're owned by Asahi. So Asahi came in and actually bought the brand. So I was working, for Asahi, who had just come into Australia, and they had this, soft drink arm that they really wanted to grow in Australia. And so I did that for 7 years and sort of turned the brand around, made it younger, sexier, cooler. It was really, really fun, really fun. And then randomly I get again, as you do on LinkedIn, you get a knock on your door and you say, hey, do you want to come to Dubai and work for Atlantis? And at that point, I was really looking for something different to do. I'd been in FMCG for a very long time.
But it's interesting because I think, a lot of people who work in luxury have always been in luxury. And I think you miss the science of marketing when you do that. You become good at the creativity of branding. But often I feel that the strategy is missing in luxury brands. I think that's challenging in the world today because they're so product led and image first, and what it actually means to like pull levers, drive demand, optimize for, anyway, you know what I mean, basically.
100%.
And so it's always refreshing when
FMCG gives you the rigor.
Yeah.
The rigor of real marketing, of really understanding that branding is in the fourth P, not the first, right?
Yeah, quite, yeah.
And so it really gives you that rigor that the product has to be right and that proposition has to be right, and it's consumer led. And what are you trying to do from a product perspective? Get that right. Then you get your pricing right. Then you get your distribution right. Like FMCG does that really, really well. It gives you the rigor and the discipline of marketing. And then you've got the communications arm. I'm incredibly frustrated in this world sometimes where people forget that marketing has 3 other P's before the fourth, and that marketing is Instagram, and I have a lot of amazing young talent in my team and they're very social led. But the reality is the proposition of marketing is so much richer than that. There is so much more depth than that. And so that kind of rigor I took to hospitality. So when I first joined Atlantis, moved to Dubai, worked on the water park, actually was my first job in Atlantis. And there wasn't the discipline of marketing. And it was really frustrating because you could see all the potential.
Yeah.
And so what I started to do in my own little team was build the rigor, build the background, build the research, build the insights, build the strategy of the product and the price and the distribution and the proposition. And then let's talk comms, because it all has to fall into line before you even talk communications. And, Aquaventure was the first brand I worked on, and I turned it from something that was very functional, very same. If you covered the logo of Aquaventure versus other water parks, it looked exactly the same, to actually finding a meaningful proposition for the brand.
Describe the water park quickly for those who don't know.
Aquaventure is the world's largest water park.
Yeah.
It is an icon in the attractions industry in the world, actually. It's a beautiful island haven in Atlantis, sandwiched between Atlantis the Palm and Atlantis the Royal. And it is really an incredible experience for you to spend a day or 2 or 3 when you come to Dubai. It's got rides. It's got 105 rides, slides and attractions. That's the spiel.
Do you think it's the dads who like it more or the kids who like it more?
Oh, 100%. Adults love the water park more than their children. 100%.
I'm obsessed. I really want to go.
Oh, it is nuts. It is nuts. It is an incredible product. So again, you go back to this, okay, in hospitality, where is the rigor in marketing? And I think hospitality is such a beautiful industry. But what happens is they focus on the operational side and delivering the guest service. When it comes to the marketing, I've often found that it's quite weak and it's very same. So what I did was I applied the principles of FMCG to hospitality. And I've been doing that for the last 11 years with Atlantis the Palm, Atlantis the Royal, and the water park.
It's interesting because when you're selling when you're selling something that is more of a commodity, you have to innovate the psychology. Whereas when you're selling something that is a stunning sensorial experience, you actually fall into complacency because you think the product is enough, but you forget that actually you're just a tab in a browser. And, there is so much cliche in the hospitality industry. There's so much elevation of luxury. There's a lot of we have banned words in our company,
okay.
And so we have a whole dictionary of things that we ban ourselves from using. Elevated luxury is one of them. The art of living is another, for example. You only have to look at the hoardings in Dubai to see how many brands lead with those types of propositions, and they fall into meaninglessness, really, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
They're not necessarily bad turns of phrase. They're just, it's hard to not become entirely desensitized to what they mean. And I think that, you know, good writing is precision of language and stage managing. Stephen King always used to, write about, it's like, you can't tell people how to feel. You've got to lead them to a feeling and let them feel.
100%.
And that's missing, I think, in hospitality in a big way.
Do you know, I think...
well, not entirely, but just on the whole.
No, I think, you know, you talk about The Royal in terms of the audacity of the opening. You know, we could have easily fallen into, I would say, the pit of mundane, meaning that, you know, it's all quiet luxury. It's all very, you know, precise and it's very quiet. And the fact is, Atlantis, the brand, stayed true to itself in the luxury space. And so, no, it's not quiet. It's loud. It's really loud. It's a 760 key luxury property. You know, it delivers incredible service, but when you walk in there, it's buzzing, it's energetic. It's not a quiet lobby of any of our counterparts. It's absolutely not that. So you have to stay true to yourself and embrace that and find a way as a marketer to cleverly position yourself differently. And that's exactly what we did.
Talk about the properties for those who don't know.
So we have two magical properties. So Atlantis the Palm opened in 2008, and it was really the first fully integrated destinational resort in Dubai. It, you know, bucked the trend of all the hotels that were closing and, you know, all the panic around the global financial crisis, and opened in 2008, September 2008, actually.
Yeah,
yes.
Okay, right. It opened right in the middle of it all,
Exactly.
didn't it?
And November 2008, Sol Kerzner, God rest his soul, did the biggest hotel opening the world had ever seen. You know, there was the fireworks. It was the launch of the Palm. It was the biggest fireworks show in the world. It had all the celebrities there that, you know, opened the resort as Atlantis and really made a mark on the Dubai scene, but I think the Middle East and also the world. Yeah. So from that perspective, Dubai said, we're here, we're standing strong. We're going to buck the trend of this, you know, meltdown that's happening everywhere else in the world.
Although it did hit Dubai quite hard.
It did.
I mean, people
absolutely.
were abandoning their car leases and
100%,
flats, and, you know,
100%.
It was a really weird.
But I think what happened when they opened Atlantis is, of course, the whole of Dubai was hit, but it sort of made a statement for the brand. You know, that, you know, we're a big, loud, strong brand and we're going to stay here.
An entertainment brand almost.
100%. And that's exactly what it was and still is. And so, you know, the property has a water park when it opened in 2008. And that water park was meant to serve hotel guests, and an aquarium that was meant to serve hotel guests. But actually being in the city of Dubai, what it actually did was cater to everybody else that wanted to come to Dubai but couldn't stay at Atlantis for various reasons. And so the proposition of Atlantis is actually welcoming to anybody and everybody who wants to experience the brand, whether it's through the restaurants, through the water park, through the aquarium, or wants to stay with us. So that was super exciting. You know, we're 1,544 hotel rooms and suites, some beautiful, we call them signature suites, underwater suites are the famous ones, yes.
Yeah, they sound incredible.
2 gorgeous underwater suites. Then we have what we call signature suites. So we have 6 of them, really, you know, presidentials, we call them Grand Atlantis, beautifully, you know, curated suites. And it's really a high-end 5-star proposition. On the other side of the spectrum, in 2023, we open Atlantis The Royal. You know, how do you open basically a resort next door, 760 rooms, and as well as residences, that is different to your sister property, and really create a proposition that is moving and different? So this is the tricky part. If you open in exactly the same proposition that you had, you'll just cannibalize, right? You take from one to the other.
I've never been able to understand this. I can't even get my head around a Tesco's opening next to a Sainsbury's, let alone another like 1,000 hotel inventory owned by the same. You know, you've got to have a really clear sense of self to be able to pull it off.
And that's exactly what we did. We created a proposition from a consumer perspective that nobody thought we could do, right? You go, Atlantis, that's for families. That's a water park. There's mermaids and, you know, things. And you're like, no, it's actually not. It is, again, under the Atlantis proposition, because what Atlantis is it's an experience brand. It's a brand that has entertainment, that has food, that has beautiful stays and experiences, that has entertainment, that has attractions. So the brand is still experiential led, but a playground for adults, right? I got the families thing done. Yep, I've got that nailed. I move on to the adult proposition now and really create that haven for adults who want to come and have a fantastic time, So it's an indulgence brand. It's, 17 restaurants, most of them are owned by or run by celebrity chefs. It's a beautiful, exclusive inventory of rooms with sky pool villas. We've got 44 swimming pools peppered throughout the whole resort.
44 swimming pools.
90 across the entire destination, but we've got 44 rooms that have pools inside their terraces.
I feel like I've really booked the wrong place.
No. You booked the right place. You've got 2 kids. You'll love it. That's what I said to you. It's really interesting. So we created a proposition where it's a playground for adults. You don't have to leave your room. It's super indulgent. You've got an incredible wellness program, a beautiful spa. You've got aesthetic wellness if you need it as well. And then you've got an incredible F&B proposition. And if you still want to go to the water park, it's at your doorstep. So we really separated them, but they share this essence of extraordinary, delivery of experiences.
So do you work for couples as much as you do families?
100%.
Yeah.
Of course. Actually, Atlantis The Royal is 70% couples, 30% families. Atlantis The Palm is 60% families, 40% couples.
Yeah. I only really started liking children when I had them.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Same. And I actually don't like many other people's children. I like my own more so. But yeah, so you create this differentiation, and I think we sort of embraced that with the Royal, and that's where the opening came from. You could do a quiet opening, or you could bring Beyonce and have the biggest resort opening that was seen since 2008. That was the challenge.
I find the convergence of hospitality and retail interesting, and what retail can learn from hospitality about guest/client experience, and what, frankly, hospitality I think ought to learn from retail. And I think that way round doesn't happen enough. I think people are quite inspired by the campaigns of fashion, but without really looking at the science of retailing. And you've also got a captive audience. You should really be using that captive audience and moving them through an ecosystem of things that allow them to express a love for a certain lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's a commercial opportunity.
100%. I mean, we did a Louis Vuitton collaboration in 2014. It was the first anniversary of Atlantis The Royal.
Yeah.
And we've got a Louis Vuitton store. We're actually the only resort that has a Louis Vuitton store in a resort in the region. And I worked for many, many years on getting luxury retail in the Royal, but I didn't want it to be some stores. I want it to be part of, your stay experience. So whether you have, in-room shopping, or whether you have resort collections that don't exist in the mall, I really wanted it to be a unique experience. So for many, many years, we worked on having the right retail offering, and I think the Royal's done really well. But for the first anniversary, I met this incredible woman who you should actually have on your podcast. Her name is Faye McLeod. She lives in London, and she was the visual merchandising director for Vuitton. She does all their windows, and I met her at Cannes, and she's just incredible, completely artistic and just an amazing human. And so I said, I really want to do a collaboration with Vuitton and Atlantis The Royal. And we came up with all these crazy ideas, and we ended up creating, actually, other than what people expect, these life-size, actually larger than life-size, Vivian dolls.
Right.
So Louis Vuitton has this sort of mascot, called Vivian.
Vivian.
And so we created life-size Vivian dolls who were experiencing the Royal. So there was Vivian the lifeguard, Vivian, the roller skater, because the resort's so big, Vivian, the one that was taking her photos from Instagram. And then we combined it with an AI experience, right? So augmented reality. So you would sort of point your phone up and Vivian's story would come to life. And that to me was creative luxury. That to me was taking luxury and doing something completely different with it. I mean, you create these large-sized dolls who are roaming around the resort, celebrating the birthday of this hotel, that to me broke through the noise of another pop-up.
What's it like when you're pitching in an idea like that? Because what's it like pitching in a silly idea?
I've been incredibly blessed with really amazing bosses who see past the ludicrousy and look at the vision.
Yeah.
You know, Beyonce came about that way. You know, my boss said to me, "Are you crazy?" And I said, "Yes, but."
Yeah.
Or yes, and I want to make this happen. So I think.
Do you get to have a chat with her?
I did.
She nice?
Yes. Yes, she was. Very, very serious and focused.
Yeah.
I think, which is what she is, right? She's a professional who delivers incredible results. But yeah, so I think you pitch it, but you also pitch it in a way that why does it make sense to the business? So I always take things from the perspective, you know, I'm good at putting myself in the shoes of somebody else who has to pitch it to somebody above them.
Yeah.
And why does it make sense for the brand is the first thing always. And then why does it make sense for the business? And then what will happen? And I'm not talking about ROI because I hate that word viscerally. ROI, return on investment. But what's the risk of not doing it? What's the risk of not standing out? What's the risk of falling into the mundane? You know, what is that risk? And how will this help the brand?
You talk about the World Away campaign.
Oh, the World Away campaign.
Now that we're talking about this.
Yeah, it was actually quite a magical experience. So a few years ago, I don't know how popular this will be, but a few years ago, I decided that we were no longer going to have a creative agency. We'd gone with some creative agency tenders and it was all becoming very same. So I have some incredibly creatively talented people in the team. We actually created a mini agency inside our business. And the reality is nobody knew our brand better than us. It was courageous and it was stupid and it was hard and it was, you know, it was going to be a few things. And we really wanted to, after the Royal opening and everybody was talking about the Royal, I said, team, we've got to talk about now we've got to reset the Palm. And I have an incredible creative director. His name is Paolo. And it really took him 9 months to work on the creative campaign for A World Away. And it wasn't about showing the rooms. It had nothing to do with that. It was about connecting with people to experience Atlantis if you were watching this. How do I connect with you? If you're watching a piece of content, how do I showcase the truth in our brand? Everything you saw in A World Away was true. But how do I create that experience, whether it was on a phone, on a screen, to connect with you, that this brand delivers this extraordinary sense of feeling like you're in another world.
What was the campaign?
It's a series of experiences that really show you how Atlantis delivers you to another place.
Yeah.
It takes you away from your everyday. It takes you away from the noise of life into a moment in time where this holiday is transformational. What we really wanted to do is say to people that through Atlantis, you can transform even a little period in your life. You know what I mean? A few days. You could have a meal that you've never had before. You could conquer a fear, like going down a water slide. You could connect with your partner or, you know, your friends over a moment of, you know, looking into one of the most beautiful aquariums in the world. So it was all about transformation, but genuine transformation. And it wasn't about, I'm not telling you that I'm changing your life. I'm telling you in that moment, I'm taking you to another world. And that was really the campaign. So it was beautifully executed. It really is about bringing to life and heightening the visual identity of what Atlantis has.
What's Dubai taught you as a leader?
Oh my goodness. Dubai taught me to think fast. You know, I came from FMCG, so everything you do, you have a 3-year innovation map, right? A 3-year pipeline. And so by the time something comes to life, it takes 3 years because you've got to build a bottle and a liquid. And Dubai, when I first got here, it was a shock to the system because they were like, okay, you need to do a campaign in 3 months. And I'm like, what? And I think Dubai taught me to think on my feet. Dubai taught me to dream big. Yeah. It really taught me to dream so much bigger than I ever would have. And for a marketer, that is a blessing and a gift and a curse, but it's so liberating. I think that that's what Dubai taught me.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's difficult, isn't it, to be quick, to deliver at quality, and to be differentiated.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And you're constantly trying to get the balance right. I don't think anybody's perfected it.
Yeah, I'm a big believer that a pressure cooker leads to good results.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you the world's most annoying question.
Oh, goodness.
How do you define luxury?
How do I define luxury? Oh, gosh. Okay, so luxury for me, the most precious commodity in the world is time. Luxury for me is how do I either give you back time, maximize your time, use your time best. That for me is a luxury that I think everybody wants. So how do I define that in the world of hospitality? How do I make sure that your day is longer when you have an experience in one of our resorts? How do I make sure that you don't think about things that you would normally think about that take up your time so you can focus your time on the next chapter, the next book, the next dining experience? How do I prolong the time that you have with people that you care about? So you have dinner, normally it's a 1 hour dinner, it's a 3 hour dinner, and you forget about time. So luxury is time. And if we as an industry and as a business can give you back time in some way or maximize your time or make you forget about time, I think that's luxury.
Do you know, yeah, I agree with that. We have so much choice that actually luxury isn't about choice. It's about making the right choice, use your time. I almost think in a funny kind of way, the ultimate luxury to me feels like making one choice, you don't have to make others.
100%.
And I guess that's the power of brand and buying into a promise, knowing that promise is imbued into the spirit of all decisions then made on your behalf. It's a joy, not having to look at stuff and make more decisions because we've overwhelmed, especially in this very fortunate, affluent market that we both serve. We've overwhelmed people with too many options.
We have a restaurant in Atlantis called FZN by Bjorn Franzen, and it's a 3-star Michelin experience, actually. And it is by far the most incredible restaurant I've ever eaten in, because your sense of place and time just go, and you are transformed into something about the food and the beverage. But the way that the whole flow is, it's just something really, really, really unique. You don't even feel like you're dining. You feel like you're watching, you're being entertained, you're eating, you're like so engaged. And it's a 3-hour meal easily that doesn't feel like it. You're like, what? Are we done already? So it's really, really interesting, again, when you've got that perfect intersection of, choices sometimes taken away from you because you don't want to make those choices. And then I give you back time somehow. I think that's sort of the really, like, that's the sweet spot of luxury.
What about things like sustainability? What do they mean for Atlantis?
I think sustainability is incredibly important for Atlantis. We have a lot of marine, animals. We're a big footprint.
Yeah.
So in 2020, we, developed a program called the Atlantis Atlas Project, and it was all about how do we reduce our carbon footprint. And it's been a very thoughtful journey on how to get that. So, it's not about the accolades, it's about becoming more sustainable. So we have our own bottling plant actually at the resorts. So we've eliminated all single-use plastics throughout that. And that was a journey to get to, because don't forget, you get addicted to the revenue. You buy bottles of water and things like that. So it was a very thoughtful process to be.
Yeah, I can see that, because it's a lot. You forget the volume is so high that actually that's a big line item.
Yeah. So it's the number one line item, actually.
Really?
And so we created a bottling plant. We have a whole sustainability program when it comes to, animals and
sorry,
care.
so did you stop selling the bottles once you started? So they're now refilled, basically.
So all of our hotel rooms actually have refilled
But you got to
water.
do stuff like that, to be honest, at scale.
Yeah. And I think this was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And we didn't do it for the sake of, it wasn't about the, again, it's not about the marketing side of it. It was the right thing to do. And we're part of, the Dubai's sustainability story. There's a huge focus in Dubai to pivot towards being more thoughtfully sustainable. We have, a huge animal care program in the resort. We give back to research. So for all of our interactions, we actually give back to animal research. Different universities doing different research on, wildlife, particularly marine life in the Arabian Gulf. So sustainability for us is across the spectrum. It's also about our people. We have a housing. We obviously house our colleagues at a residential complex. We're doing, planting of trees around the complex. We're doing, vegetable gardens and things like that. So we're also educating a lot of people who come from very humble backgrounds on what sustainability is, and that's part of the education of sustainability. So it's very important to us, and I think it's going to become more and more and more important as we move forward.
What do you think the next decade of hospitality marketing looks like? And thoughts and opinions on technology, culture, changes in how we behave, attention. What's your general outlook?
I think in terms of technology, I think especially with AI and if everybody hears the word AI again, I think they're just going to shoot themselves. But I think it's going to go two ways. I think there'll be a school where it's all about efficiency. So I don't want to speak to anybody. And then the antithesis will be, I want to speak to somebody and I want to make sure that I have those interactions and those moments. And I think luxury is all going to be about interactions with people. I think technology is an enabler, but I think more and more and more the future will be, I want to have personalization. I want to be able to speak to somebody because we're in a world where that's becoming easier not to. You can speak to a bot. You can speak to, it's becoming easier not to have the interactions. So I think hospitality and luxury especially will use technology as an enabler, but will still be important that you interact with people.
Yeah.
And then on the other spectrum, for the sort of the other side of hospitality, the budget side of hospitality, you don't even have to speak to anybody when you check in or check out. You barely have to see anybody. So I think there are going to be two spectrums and they'll continue to sort of pull themselves further apart.
Yeah, I agree with that. What would you change about your industry?
Oh, what would I change about my industry? How we do marketing. I think how we communicate to people. I think we need to step out of the realms of our own heads. We're very precious about hospitality, but in actual fact, we need to glean insight, understanding, knowledge from so many other industries to be better. And we end up looking at each other as a competitive set without actually looking at the world in broader spectrum. What can I learn from McDonald's? And what can I learn from Coke? And what can I learn from Nike? And what can I learn from Vuitton? And, and also I think luxury is obsessed with luxury. So a luxury hospitality person is obsessed with luxury retail. But in actual fact, the world is so much bigger. I love the way some things happen in terms of, if I look at, for example, price positioning, I'm really interested in how cars do price positioning and how they use their features to leverage different price things. So I think we need to step out of our industry and really look around us and glean insights and experiences from other industries and not just luxury. I think sadly, the word luxury has been so overused.
It's a search term.
I mean, it's crazy, right? And so I think, and when something's overused, it becomes a commodity. The challenge with luxury is being commoditized.
Yeah, I mean, as I was saying to you before, when we started this podcast, which was started as a joke, the first episode was just called Why We Hate the Word Luxury. And it was just a rant about luxury. It's still one of the most downloaded episodes.
and I get it. I so get it, because you go back to the question of what is luxury? What am I trying to do? And forget about the word. What am I trying to do in hospitality? What am I actually trying to do? What's the proposition that I'm trying to give you? And every brand has its own version of that proposition. But, we're obsessed with this word that is a commodity now. And I think retail is in a very dangerous place as well, because there's now the movement against luxury retail.
I think retail's in a very dangerous place.
100%. And people are moving against luxury retail. New generations are looking at that form of luxury's excessiveness. And it's almost like, I've got the money, but I don't want it.
I think there's a huge myopia in I think what's going to happen to the share price of the big house. Anyway, that's a whole different podcast.
100%. But I think, again, right, it goes back to this concept of you've commoditized luxury. It's no longer rare.
We just want things that have meaning. And the story means something to us. And we buy it as a show of, well, all forms of consumerism, it's been said, are a form of self-expression. We are expressing ourselves when we buy things. We don't need anything, really. We live in a great age of abundance. And there's got to be more to it simply than the status symbol that it carries.
Do you know, I know somebody who's a very good friend of mine, and he loves watches. And it's not about luxury. It's about the timepiece.
Horology.
So he loves, and he has the most random brands, and he'll buy them for very different reasons. And some of them are luxury watches, and some of them are completely interesting stories, but he loves the storytelling behind that. And it's got nothing to do with whether they're expensive or not. It has to do with the craft and the art and the storytelling.
Yeah,
and that's a very different proposition. It's got nothing to do with, I'm wearing a fancy watch. It's got something to do with, I love this timepiece because.
I think as humans, we'll always be fascinated in the irrational pursuit of craft to an unhealthy level. And that is, I think, always born of blood, sweat and tears. And I think in this age of AI, the things we truly value, will always be because at the back of our mind, we know that a level of effort has gone into that we can't reconcile ourselves with, and that there's a focus and passion and dedication to doing something to make something beautiful to an irrational degree that makes us fascinated by it and hence makes us value it.
And again, I think that could be applied against everything. Craftsmanship and the craft of what you do, I think is really, really, really important. And I think, in an age where, my father was a printing engineer and he used to work on a very famous machine called the Heidelberg.
I know the Heidelberg,
right?
Yeah, it's classic.
And he's, 84 years old now. Until this day, they'll call him at work and say, we need your help. Because he's only one of very few people in the world now that understand the Heidelberg printer as a piece of machinery that still has value. And I think this concept of craftsmanship and art into everything, whether it's retail, whether it's hospitality, I think that's actually the value that people appreciate rather than slapping on luxury onto everything.
That's where the word Luddite came from. That when the Heidelberg printing press was invented, a guy called Ned Ludd in the north of England ran around burning factories with a bunch of people known as the Luddites because they had a similar bad reaction to what's currently happening with AI, which is we're not going to have any jobs.
Right.
Ned Ludd. He's actually sort of mythical. It's unclear whether he actually existed.
He existed an artist, but like Jack the Ripper.
Exactly. But he went around with this merry band, his not so merry band of vandals.
But again, right, it's craft. And I think I appreciate AI and what it will do for us. But I think the word craftsmanship is still so important in everything that we do, in the lives that we lead, in the football plays that come up, in the tennis plays that are playing, the art and the craft, in everything. I think that is really the essence of purpose for brands.
What concerns you about the world that we're leaving to the next generation?
The lack of value in things. I think, I have a 14-year-old. And so trying to explain to him, as, 14-year-olds who are overly exposed to this world, where the true value of life is, I think is really, really important. So I think because it's so fleeting and it's moving so fast, things that hold real value versus things that don't, I think is really hard.
But what do you think holds value? Because that changes from generation to generation.
I think anything that adds to you, truly adds to you. And I'm not talking about watching doom scrolling on TikTok. I think my son used TikTok to learn how to cook a perfect steak, right? I love that. That's value to you. That holds meaning, you know. And again, it's the use of technology to enable something to do. And he's actually perfected the thing. So he's done really well. And he's experimented with different pepper and salt and the timing and the resting. But I think that that's something he'll remember. And I think value is things that you take with you, you know, even it's not so fleeting anymore. A good book is value, and boy, do I want people to read some more. We do so much in our day. I don't know if you know that, like, your day's so packed with things. When you walk away from that day, what do you remember? And what's really added value versus things you just had to do?
Well, I think journaling's quite a good thing to do, isn't it, when it comes to that?
Yeah, well, it's stillness, right? It just makes you still, and it, you know.
Positive reflection.
Exactly.
Everything in the, you know, we're all having our own experiences, but it's your mind that shapes your happiness. So, you know, how you choose to think about or remember things or look forward to things is directly relevant or relative to, you know, that's what I find interesting about branding and hospitality. Because I think the brand in hospitality provides navigation, emotional navigation. And we were talking earlier about the relativity of, you know, expectation versus experience, how you manage that gap. And don't over-egg either end of that equation, because there's got to be some sort of positive leap between the expectation and the experience, because that's what creates joy. Something's got to feel relatively better than what you expected in some way, shape or form. And which I think is the great challenge of luxury marketing and hospitality. But I also think the great opportunity is thinking about the before and after and warming people into an experience so they see what you want them to see, often at the expense of all else, because it's emotional. It's not rational. You're not selling a commodity. You're not selling a room. You know,
absolutely.
You're selling a journey that's physical, but also internal.
100%. And I think, you know, I mean, people go on holidays, yes, to relax, but also to connect. You know, and we need to give people the moments of connection that are not just, you know, you sit and have a conversation over meals. You know, the moment of connection with your children when you see them conquer something that they're afraid of, or, go down a slide, or even fall and learn, right? Hospitality is all about creating moments of connection for people, you know, and giving them, like you say, that sense of joy. And I think we need to make sure that we remember that. What are the moments that are going to surprise you, delight you, you know, make you see things differently as well? Perspective, right? Traveling gives you perspective, different languages, different food, different nationalities, different cultures, that we're giving that value back to the person or the consumer or the guest, because that's our function.
Yeah. If you had to go at a job tomorrow, what would you do?
A different job?
I'm thinking like gardener, like professional chef, completely different.
I would do, and well, it's not completely different. I actually, my dream is to open up a cafe that combines my three favorite things: coffee, books, and flowers. So
wonderful.
I want to do book clubs and have the prettiest flowers that I like. It's all about me, and the books that I want people to read, and drink amazing, amazing coffee and live a life of stillness and pleasure.
That's nice. So I like the thought of a sort of espresso infused rose aroma cafe with some great classic novels to settle into. I like that.
Absolutely.
And then my last question, you'll be relieved to know perhaps.
No.
What's the most exciting thing for you in the next 5 years?
Oh my goodness. The next 5 years, I mean, I'm at Atlantis and I'm loving it. I think the most exciting thing would be watching the brand expand. I think that would really, it would be doing right by the brand, because more people in the world need to have an Atlantis experience.
Yeah. Well, look, thank you very much. We all look forward to watching Atlantis set sail.
Oh, well, let's see. But thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed the chat and the provocations. It was very, thought-provoking.
Thank you for joining.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.